All right. Well, we'll go ahead and like kick off, and then as people trickle in, that's fine. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. And if you have any that seem relevant to the current conversation, I might interject and add those in here live. But at the end, we'll take about 15 minutes to go through Q&A. So a little background on how this webinar came to be. An investment fund came to MakerPad looking for a way to automate some of their more manual, repetitive tasks when it came to executing a legal document. And there were a few specific asks. They were wanting to switch to Airtable as a database. They wanted to switch their e-signature client, but it was important that there was some kind of certification of signature. They didn't like the current UI of the one they were using, and they needed to store the files in Dropbox after the document was executed. So we considered a bunch of different options. They both, we ended up with two options, and they both involved Formstack. So I started diving into the Formstack platform, realized it was pretty robust, and so I invited the Formstack team here to share with the MakerPad community and anyone interested in the no-code space to share how it works, the different use cases. It's a pretty powerful tool, and they're not greedy. Even though it pretty much does everything you want within the platform, they also integrate with a bunch of third-party tools, which is awesome. So let's go ahead and jump in. And we have Zach, VP of Partnerships, and we have Justin, who is the Partner Enablement Manager at Formstack. So Zach, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Justin and I have kind of a set of demos we want to walk you guys through here over the next little bit. Keep questions coming if ideas come in. I did write down, Amy, the quote you just said. I ended up with two options, and they both involve Formstack. That's a keeper. I'm going to keep that one. Good quote. Part of the reason Amy said that is we do have a modular platform. That's the Formstack platform. Just one visual here to get us started and get everyone oriented on what is Formstack. Modular platform for data collection through digital forms, document generation, and digital signature, kind of with workflow capabilities wrapped around that, and a lot of integrations. We have over 250 integrations around our products, and the kind of story that Amy shared there, like we want to use Airtable, we want to use Dropbox, maybe we want to use Salesforce, what we're working with every day. Because what we find is that our products are tremendous for allowing you to capture data and put it to work around a CRM or a database or a storage system or some combination of all the above. And being modular, some customers use kind of one aspect, others use kind of the entire suite. And through the integrations, there are also native experiences. What I'm going to do today is I'll walk you through a common platform use case of what that would look like for a user to say a common use case that we help someone solve. Justin's then going to give you a little bit of a taste of how we do it by way of like our drag and drop interface, so kind of setting up a forms workflow, for example. And then we'll also give you a taste of, well, what does it look like to use Formstack within Salesforce for managing a form or managing a document or Airtable. That's what we've got planned for the next half hour or so. With that said, let me kind of reshare my screen just to switch windows here. Okay, so what we're finding is more and more customers are looking to have self-serve or guided experiences for how they may interact with a business, a local business. This is across healthcare, education, industries like legal firms that Amy mentioned, and you kind of go right down the list. Every business is sort of, if they weren't already headed towards that digital experience for customers, they're being forced to by kind of current world events. Formstack is phenomenal to help businesses get into that digital customer experience. This is an example of a children's health system and a patient registration process. This process could apply to healthcare, like patient registration, as I'm about to show you, law firms, back to Amy's example, a customer sign up or customer onboarding process. And you can go right down the list kind of by vertical and think about how that may be applied. The first thing that Formstack is just like it sounds, allowing you to set up digital forms that can be embedded in a website, a portal, Salesforce communities, as we'll talk about a bit later, mobile experiences, however you're capturing data, Formstack can be there to facilitate that in a digital form. And this, what I'm showing you here in terms of data capture, is all managed without code on the back end, as Justin will show you in a few minutes. So this is our Formstack form builder. I can set up forms with lots and lots of capabilities without code to do things like capture data, multi-step forms like I'm showing you. We can do things like conditional logic. So do I need a translator? Yes. Have a follow-up question appear? No, disappear. So make that user experience, very tailored based on what we know about you as an individual, as a person. Uploading files, no problem. Would I like to add another family member? Yes. Then an additional page may appear. I'll say no, just to kind of keep moving, and I'll submit this form. Every touch point along the way here, so from that form submission, we're about to show a document generation, we're about to show a digital signature. We do have APIs, webhooks, and integrations for each point along the way. So let's say, for example, we wanted that form submission data to end up in Salesforce or Airtable, or a variety of other CRMs or databases. You'd be able to integrate that there. In this case, I'm taking the form submission and I want to generate a document so that me, as the patient, can digitally sign that and supply that back to my physician, as official record keeping. So if I jump over to my email, I've been emailed a completely customized document. So we've used Formstack Documents to set up a design template based on the customer and their look and feel, design, layout, and all the rules around their document. And we've fed data in from the form into here. We also can feed data from Salesforce Airtable. Again, Justin will show you examples of how documents can be generated from other data sources momentarily as well. So a completely customized document, rules-driven document. You could imagine having sort of different sections of the document also driven by rules and information as well, as part of creating this. And we've taken the Formstack document and fed that through Formstack Sign for digital signature. So we've routed this to my email. We also could have routed it to, say, a mobile text message. And I'm signing it, I'm saving it, and I am now submitting that back. Now, this was a self-serve e-signature or digital signature experience. So we made this just one step, but this could be a multi-step signing experience if we wanted it to be. The digital signature has kind of certain meaning. This is more meaningful than, say, just like capturing that signature on a web form. The digital signature is really a court level signature. This is a product used to manage millions of insurance policies every single year, for example, and the digital signature attached to them. So not only do we get an imprint of the signature in any fields that we've submitted, but there's a full kind of auto date stamp, timestamp logging of all that showing up right here. And this file could be saved to our source system as well, Salesforce, Airtable, et cetera. So lots of possible user experiences that can be enabled with Formstack, but that's a good representative example. Going to hand it over to Justin to show you a bit of how these forms can be managed, how they can be extended to incorporate workflows and native experiences in Salesforce and Airtable. Justin, you are up.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. And Amy, thanks for having us today. Great. Well, here is our web-based form solution on the back end. This is what it would look like if you wanted to build a form. Here's where all your forms will live. I can come up here, create a form, a survey, or a workflow. Now, there's not a huge difference in a form or a survey. The surveys are really just more for gathering things like customer sentiment data. Workflow forms are quite a bit different because they are considered multi-step forms. So think of a process where you need multiple individuals to touch that form and enter data into that form. And then at some point in that workflow, you need maybe a document to be triggered to be signed off on. And then, as Zach mentioned, we could have multiple different signers and multiple different other processes occur within that. But as you build a new form, you just got to give it a name. That'll continue to help configure your subdomain here. We do have a number of different templates you can start with. Now these will save you some time so you don't have to start completely from scratch, but we have categorized them for you as well so that you can save some time. So you just need general lead forms. Maybe you need to have like an expense reimbursement or something like that. Healthcare is a pretty big use case for Formstack as well. So these are going to save you a little bit of time. I do want to show you an example of our workflow forms. So think of an employee performance evaluation situation where if I go into the form builder here, all my forms are on the left, or my fields are on the left-hand side. I'm building the form on the right-hand side. I can bring a new field in with a drag and a drop. So super simple to configure everything within the application. And then all of your fields have different field settings once you click into them. So I can come down here and configure all of the different options within my checkbox very simply. One of the really nice things about Formstack is the ability to have your forms set up in multi-columns. And while that alone is not super exciting, the ability to have individualized fields span certain levels of those columns is another added level of design that you get with Formstack. So you can imagine here we have a 4-column form. I've chosen my name, email, gender to span a number of different columns. So I've got name spanning 2 columns, email and gender spanning 1 column. Keep going through here, but you can imagine that this employee is going to fill out their self-review where they'll put their first name, last name. We do have some logic in this form as well. So if I open this up, I can't open it up because it's a workflow form and it's not published. That's okay. I can show you here in a second. But essentially, we have them selecting their department. From there, we're showing them options of who they report to. So we're only going to show one of these based off of the selection of their department. So if they choose administration, marketing, sales, operations, or customer experience, we're going to show them one of these other drop-down menus from which they can then select who they report to. And then down here, that person would then rate their performance on a slider scale 1 to 10, explaining why they think they deserve a 10 on their overall performance, maybe on cross-functional projects. Now, with workflow forms, you can set them up multi-step so that then once the employee fills out their information, it kicks off to their manager. So you see here the manager, and this looks a little wonky because I changed the columns of the form, so let's go back to that. The manager is also going to rate the employee, explain why they gave them those ratings. And then down here, we're also going to say, do we want to give them a raise? If the answer is yes, then we have logic to show them this field. So this field is only going to show if, should the employee receive a raise, equals yes. So we're only showing this field in that scenario. They'll submit that. It'll kick off to the HR manager here, who can leave some comments, approve that requested amount, or maybe even approve a new requested amount. So maybe they don't approve it initially. The HR manager has the ability to send it back to the employee's manager, say, hey, we can only give a 3% raise this year. So the manager would put 3% in this new amount field. From there, they can then approve that, and we can then kick it off to the CFO. So you build your form in different sections, and then up here, I have a build style and workflow tab. Workflow tab is where I then configure the different steps of that workflow. So you'll see here, the nice thing about the first step in a workflow form is that it doesn't have to have someone log in to Formstack. So I could embed this form to a website. I could take the URL and send it to an employee. That way they don't have to have a license to log into Formstack to access this form. You can imagine other use cases where that might be beneficial. We had a use case where we were working with a real estate company that wanted to embed a form to a website where someone could go to that website, share their interest on a particular property that they're interested in purchasing. That then starts the workflow to kick off to an administrator who can review the person's information, maybe run a credit check, and then decide if they want to reach back out to that person to have a more formalized conversation about that property. And then from there, once everything's good to go, they could then kick off a document to be signed off on, to have that electronically signed, to have that person say, I do indeed want to purchase this property, here's my signature. But you'll see here that person can only see that employee self-review. The manager does have to be a user here in Formstack today, but they can view that previous section, edit their section, the manager review section. Then the HR manager here, again, has the ability to view all the previous sections and edit their section. And I told you, the HR manager may want to say, we need to send it back to the manager because we can only approve a 3% raise. Well, that's what we're going to do here with some logic. We're going to allow them to send back to previous steps. And that logic includes if, this is another piece of logic that says if the requested amount is yes, so they're going to approve that, then we're going to go ahead and go to step 4 here where we kick it off to the CFO, where then Zach can define if he wants to give the employee that raise or not. So multiple different ways that you can use these multi-step forms, lots of internal use cases, but obviously that real estate use case was another scenario to consider. Now, other things that you can do with Formstack Forms is things like take payments in a form. We worked with a winery throughout COVID who was really struggling to sell wine because they only sold their wine if someone came to the vineyard or through events. Well, during COVID, everything was shut down. So they came to us and said, hey, we need the ability to sell our wine online, and we need to be able to send an electronic PDF that is either an invoice or receipt to the individuals that make purchase of the wine. So we spun something up for them and let those individuals choose what types of wines they want to order. From there, we show them different sections of whites or reds that they're interested in purchasing. Based off the quantity they select, it auto calculates the total price of those. And then at the very end of our form, we're able to collect a credit card to take that payment immediately here on the form. From there, we only need to send them that PDF invoice. So we have a number of different payment integrators that we can work with. The way that they facilitated this was they just embedded this form to their website. So if you go to your sharing options here, we have a simple embed. You really just need to copy and paste this to the web page you want to house it on. If you have someone who runs your website, you really we need to provide them with this short bit of code to be able to have that on your website. Another use case that we found was really pertinent during COVID were things like QR codes. So we worked with a business that was trying to configure a touchless patient check-in process. And the way that they did that was they had 2 iPads sitting up at the front desk, and they would deploy a QR code to that iPad where the person could scan it with their phone. That phone then pops up a form for the individual to fill out on their mobile device. Allows them to check in directly on their mobile device. One thing you can also do with Formstack Forms is things like data prefill. So if I had previous information on this patient, when I deploy that QR code to the iPad, I would be able to pre-fill data from a database onto that form so that it creates that warm and fuzzy feeling where they feel known. We're not asking them to enter information that we've previously collected on them, and it's an overall better patient experience for them. So tons of different ways that you can deploy these Formstack forms. But I do want to point out a couple other different things for things like web-based forms. So if you have any type of marketing use cases, we're going to be doing things like web to lead. This conversion kit's going to be really beneficial to you because you can do things like A/B testing. You deploy 2 different types of form based off of whoever opens it. The form stack itself chooses which version to show to the user. And then from there, you get data in the back end that defines which gets a higher conversion rate. What better than A/B testing that it does it for you in the system? We also have this ability to collect partial submissions. So if you have forms that people often taper off on, but you want to have the ability to reach out and connect with them after they've tapered off, that's great. Have the email address or the phone number be one of the first few fields in the form. We collect that immediately into the Formstack database. You can then go into your submissions tab, find those partial submissions, and have those as like a lead routing that you pass to all your reps to reach out to those individuals. Some other things here like Google Analytics, you can have individuals be able to log into their Facebook account to autofill information on the forms as well. Field bottlenecks will show you where people tend to taper off as well. All of that information will be available for you on the Analytics and the Submissions tab here. I do want to show you a number of different integrations that we have. We have a lot of native integrations that make collecting data to Formstack much more enriching because you do have the ability to automatically send that data elsewhere. So if I go down to our integrations here, We have different categories for you. You can see some of the bigger ones like Amazon S3, we work with Box. I'll go in a couple different categories here, like a calendar. You could have a calendar meeting be created directly from a form submission. A number of different CRMs that we work with. I mentioned payment integrators. Maybe you need to collect payments on a form to be able to facilitate those wine orders. We all love wine, right? You know, one use case that I've seen as well, people use Zendesk, right? Well, you want to have a Zendesk ticket complete, you know, created directly from a form submission. That's one thing that we've actually tried out internally as well. And then, you know, one of the bigger ones is going to be for us, the whole suite of Formstack here. So using the Formstack Documents integration, taking data, merging that into a nice template like Zach showed you. You have complete control over those to do the formatting, and you choose where you want the data to go inside those documents. So lots of flexibility around this web-based form solution. It's really great for marketing type use cases where you're embedding forms to websites, but you can also do very complex things like workflow forms, like data prefill in this application. I want to transition over to the documents product so you guys can get a look as the back end of what that looks like as well. So really two main features that the documents product offers you: a document where the documents, you know, you build a template, you put placeholders within that document, and then from there, whatever data source you hook that up to, you define where those data points go into the document. We also have data routing. So this is a really robust feature that Zach and I were actually just talking with Amy about right before we joined here, where this investment fund has, you know, really complex contracts where sometimes they need to add addendums or they need to add extra exhibits. Well, data routing allows you to generate multiple different documents, include them in a combined PDF, and then send them to the same or separate location. So you can imagine in this investment fund, you know, they've got exhibit A, exhibit B, C, and they've got an addendum they want to add on there, but it's only in certain scenarios. Well, those additional documents within data routing, you can set triggers, if statements essentially, to only trigger those addendums or exhibits in certain scenarios. So super flexible. One of the really nice things about Formstack Documents is going to be able to build your templates in a really familiar application like Microsoft Word or a PowerPoint. Maybe you guys are, you know, PDF editor people like Adobe or Nitro Pro. Great. Build your document template in that source. Put your merge fields or your placeholders in that template. And then once you upload it here, Formstack Documents will recognize those placeholders and merge fields. From there, you're able to map that up to your data source and ensure that the data flows directly where you want it to in that document. We also give you 35-ish templates here to start with, where you can have like a contract agreement. Maybe you want to have an event ticket. There's things like sales proposals in here, prenuptial agreements, tax documents, all kinds of stuff. Now, these are going to be sort of just as templates are within the Forms product, a way for you to not have to start completely from scratch. They'll give you some bones and a framework to start from, but you do have control to go in there, change those templates up, put your own logos, custom colors, and branding on there. We also have our own in-app document builder, which I'll give you a look at what that looks like. It really has all the same bells and whistles that you find within a Microsoft Word, but it also gives you things like an insert for those placeholders and if statements if you're a non-technical individual that doesn't really want to have to worry about the syntax of the code that you're inputting in there. The third-party deliveries is really your main option here. We have 40 third-party delivery methods that allow you to deliver these documents to things like a CRM. You can deliver them to cloud storage like a Dropbox, a Box, Amazon. You can deliver these documents to e-signature, and you can even deliver them through physical mail. So we've found that some industries like legal, manufacturing, healthcare sometimes still want to get a wet signature on a document. Great, we've partnered with 2 companies that will print the document off, put the right postage and packaging on there, and then mail it out to its endpoint. And then lastly, where's our data coming from? Is it coming from an external service like a CRM? Is it coming from a CSV that I'm going to manually upload? So I'll show you a pretty basic example in this contract agreement. And this is the actually in-app document builder that we have within a documents product. Like I said, same buttons you'll find within a Microsoft Word. I can put things like an image in here. I can put a table in here. These are just going to be your standard merge fields that start with a squiggly bracket and a $sign. The text within these 2 brackets doesn't really matter. What matters is the data source that you map it up to. So it makes sense to name it exactly what you would want it to. So organization naturally maps to a company name or an account. And I actually want to take something back that I just said. It does matter with Airtable. So if you're using Airtable, this merge field has to have the exact same capital letters and syntax and spacing as your columns within Airtable. That's how the mapping works within Airtable. So every other source, it doesn't really matter. There's a manual mapping process that occurs with every other data source.
This is really great to know, actually, that it's not the same across all tools, because I've been there where it's like you're mapping stuff out at Airtable and I have to go back and like check if I capitalized the first letter of the column or something. But I like that it's not like that across all tools. But this is one of my favorite parts of the platform, is that you can just go into insert and type in your field and it creates a merge field for you. So you don't have to worry about like what the merge field syntax is for Formstack versus, you know, the next platform. They might do it differently. So that's one of my favorite features here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amy. Appreciate that. Yeah, I forgot about, I'm still, the Airtable integration is still a little newer for us, and I'm still getting my feet under myself with it. And so I was like, wait a minute, Airtable, you have to match the syntax up completely with the capitalized and all that. So Amy was mentioning the insert function that also works for like things like if statements. So I have a field in my CRM called additional services. If that field has a value of yes, then I would include this additional services text in the end document that gets created. That is very applicable to things like that investment fund use case, where you maybe have to have certain clauses you want to exclude or exclude or not include in the document when you're trying to generate it. That is also a simple insert. So if I were to do an insert over here and do an if statement, this is a really common one, not Arizona. If state equals California, right? Lots of documents we see say, you know, that's got a separate addendum just for the state of California. But if state equals California, I want my document to have this text in it. And if it's anything else, it would be that text. So very nice to have that. And everything that's between the start of the if statement and the closeout of this /if is then conditional. So if I want to move this /if all the way down here, now all of this is conditional based off of that one field. And then another really awesome insert function is going to be things like signature tags. Now, our documents product is still agnostic when it comes to working with other e-signature solutions. So that also is a simple insert over here. You'll see we work with the main e-signature solutions that you may use. Adobe, DocuSign, we have Formstack Sign in here, but you would essentially just choose your service, signature, initial, or date, and then it'll do the code for you. So the best practice here is also to white out that text so that it doesn't show up behind your button. But if statements also work with your signature tags. So I have a field that is signer 2. Well, if that field is not empty, then signature is going to be required for signer 2. Having the ability of conditional signers. Sometimes you need multiple individuals to sign. Sometimes you need one individual to sign. Really nice to have that. So the documents product can output as a PDF. It can output as a Word document. You can output the document as the body of an email. That worked really well for that wine company that I had mentioned earlier. They wanted the invoice or the receipt to be the body of the email, because any type of e-commerce scenario you purchase online, you don't get a document in your email. You get a body, which is the document, and it's your receipt. I want to pop over to our delivery methods so you guys can see where all you can have these documents delivered to. In this scenario, you see I've got 2 deliveries configured, Formstack Sign and Salesforce. We're generating this contract agreement from Salesforce. We're sending it to Formstack Sign. Once it's signed, we're then going to upload that document back into Salesforce, and can even update fields in Salesforce once that document gets uploaded back there. So you can see how complex you can get with having multiple different deliveries, having this document touch multiple different endpoints, and then it eventually arrives where you'd like it to go. So within our deliveries, we split them up into categories as well. So we can deliver to a lot of the major CRM solutions you find out there in the market. All of these are just going to be a username and password authentication to your account. So you don't have to set up any complex API connection. It's really just, hey, select Infusionsoft, type in my credentials. Now I can choose where I want that document to go in Infusionsoft. Same thing for doc storage. You know, most people are going to be using Amazon Box, Dropbox, Google Drive. We have offered Spring CM if you do need things like redlining in sort of a contract negotiation process, we can deliver that to Spring CM where the redlining can occur there. And then I mentioned all those e-signatures. The one that didn't show up within the builder was this OneSpan sign. That's a newer integration here. But we can deliver through physical mail, as I had mentioned. So lob and case mail, you just choose that service. You then connect your address where you want that delivered. From there, they'll take care of that for you. And then we can even do some other things, like some people are still using fax. Maybe if it's a custom scenario, we have to do a webhook. Email is a very common one because you can select the email that gets merged in. So you send data from a CRM, you send data from a Formstack form that has an email address. Great, let's send the document directly to that email address that got merged in. And then you can personalize things like your subject line here with your merge fields to, again, make it more personalized to the individual. One quick scenario to show you on data routing as well. So I've got a Formstack form for someone to purchase tickets to attend West Side Music Festival. So upon getting that data into the database of Formstack, because they made that purchase, I'm immediately going to send them a festival receipt to their inbox. So as long as the address is not empty, we're going to send them that. And then from here, we also want to send them a physical ticket to attend that event. So we can have some sort of QR code or something to be scanned on that ticket to deliver to them, say 2 months before that festival. And these are the certain triggers you can put on there. Now, if you want these delivered together, as the scenario that we talked about with Amy with the investment fund, they've got all these different exhibits they want to include. You just need to include those in a combined PDF. It'll all be one file. From there, you have all of your documents in one file. And then here are your triggers. You can even add multiple and have and/or operators to make it even more dynamic. Let's hop into Salesforce for any of the Salesforce folks. Now, Formstack, this is a separate application, a separate forms application, which we have that is native to Salesforce. It's the only truly native form solution within the Salesforce ecosystem. And by truly native, I mean, once you download this application from the App Exchange, you don't have to set up an API connection. You don't have to map your form fields to Salesforce fields. You're automatically working with your Salesforce fields when you build the form. So I wanted to build a new form. I just have to give it a name. From there, I can choose my Salesforce objects I want to work with. And I can also work with all of my related Salesforce objects. So you see all of my lookups up here, and then all of my child objects. Maybe I want to have someone be able to create an opportunity. And from there, they can generate as many products related to the opportunity as they would like. This form solution works with all of Salesforce's standard and custom objects, and we have the ability to work with up to 15 different standard and custom objects in one form submission. So it gives you a lot of flexibility for those really complex data models where, let's say I've got maybe 10 different child objects that I want to collect data to. By choosing these objects, that then makes the fields within those objects able for me to use those in the form builder. So if I pop over to this window, this is what the form builder looks like once you pop into it. Here, someone's signing up for yoga courses, and we're essentially going to have them from the contact object. So you'll see contact object and my enrollment object as well over here. And then all the corresponding fields within those objects live in the dropdowns. Everything comes over just as it does in the other form solution, a simple drag and a drop. And then within that, we work with all the different Salesforce field types. So the field settings, just as the other form builder, you got to open those up. And then from there, you can make fields required, not required. You can even have the ability to upsert. So let's say this is a web to lead form, and someone fills that out, but you already have a contact in your Salesforce org that matches that email address. That's okay. What we can do is, if this value is found as an email address in your Salesforce org upon submission, we will then update that existing lead or update that existing contact as opposed to creating a new one. So really helps with duplicate prevention. This form solution also has the ability to collect things like files. So we can collect files up to sizes of 25 megs. You choose how many files you would like them to be able to upload. You choose which object you want them to be able to upload those files to. And you can even custom name those files based off of values they fill out in the form. So whatever they put for their first name in this form, we're going to custom name those files after that person. And then for any type of small, medium businesses that maybe work with Salesforce and Salesforce storage limits is a huge upcharge. They want to try to avoid stuff like that. We do have other integrations where you can make it so those files don't even go to Salesforce. They go to other places like Azure, AWS, and Dropbox.
Justin, I'm thinking there's no way you're going to have enough time to give this justice. So I'll give some of the like big highlights for everyone, like native Salesforce form builder on the App Exchange installed directly into your Salesforce org. Powerful data pre-fill use cases. That's really where we see our customers and partners leveraging this. So let's say I want to send out an email to someone with a pre-filled form. You can have that URL saved right to the Salesforce record to reference. And pre-filling forms means that you're saving users time and you're collecting accurate data right back to Salesforce for a whole range of use cases. Could be collecting information on a new patient, a new customer as well. Those kind of ideas. Community forms as well. So Salesforce communities are basically Salesforce's version of portals or protected environments. Our forms can also be deployed there. You can draw data off of that community user. All to say, if you've got Salesforce forms projects, like this is the premium solution for managing that.
I love the interface within Salesforce. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great, Amy. Justin, I'm sensitive. I know Amy is Dynasty Airtable Documents, since it ties back to her use case that she teed us up, and then I want to leave time for questions. So
my mind is like blown right now, but I'll get to that after Airtable.
Awesome. Well, Formstack has a block in Airtable, so you can download that, configure different workspaces, and have all your different tables within your workspaces. You'll see over here is where you have the Formstack Documents product. This allows us to select records. I can select multiple here and generate multiple records at a time. From there, once I make a selection, all of my Formstack document templates load in here. And that's just because you do have to do a quick API key and secret connection, but super simple to do that. All you have to do is go into Formstack Documents, choose create API key and secret, and then copy and paste it. Super simple to do. But as I make selections for the documents that I want to have created, my templates within Formstack Documents open up on the right-hand side here. I can then find the actual document that I'm looking for. From there, based off of my columns in Airtable, the syntax, how they're spelled. So as long as I have a merge field or a placeholder in my document that has first name with a capital F and a capital N with no space, the values that are in this column will go directly where they need to go into the Formstack document. So I did misspeak earlier, but Airtable is a little newer for me. So I choose the documents that I want to generate, or the records I want to generate a document for. From there, I choose my document, and I want to upload my documents to my attachments field. And then you can also, if you have just one document selected, also choose to have that document automatically pop up in another window. So I'll get rid of this. You see, we can automatically open that up after it's created. So you don't have to really set up, once you download the block into your Airtable org or instance, you don't really have to set up any delivery where you want that document to go. As long as you want that in Airtable, all you're doing here is choosing to upload that to the attachment field, and then do you want to open it whether after it's created or not. From there, create that document. It'll then show up in our attachments field. Successful creation. You see there, it just popped up. I can open that document from today at 12:44 p.m. This may not be the correct document to be merging with because obviously no data came in, but if I chose one that matched the syntax of one of my columns here, then data obviously is going to flow directly where it's supposed to within that service. So
I feel like this is like a great option for like a smaller team that needs like a robust like document to signature solution, but maybe like doesn't have the revenue yet to like invest in like the whole suite of tools and stuff. So like I tend to find that the smaller startups are using Airtable as their database, and so this is just like an awesome like powerhouse app that you just like in my example, I set up a button in Airtable so that someone just goes in and hits generate document and it opens the Formstack app with an Airtable. And then you click one more button and it sends it out for signature, and then all goes back into the right file folders and Dropbox. And it's just like an awesome, quick solution versus what they were doing beforehand, which was someone was taking all the information coming in from the form and manually inputting that into an agreement each time. And when I found that out, I was like, okay, we can at least solve half of this with merge fields, but this took it to like the next level in saving time.
Yep.
I love this block in Airtable. It's really cool.
We should have had you show, since you're clearly a better Airtable than me. But and yeah, we often found that we did some research, and like most customers on average, we save $20,000 per year in document generation because so many of them are doing it manually.
Yeah.
And this allows them to automate that process. And that $20,000 is after our fee for the annual cost of paying for the documents product.
Yeah, my background is I used to be a paralegal at a big tech company. So right now I'm like, holy moly, you guys would have saved like so much work. I had no idea, like especially when our company went remote, the printing legal documents when some companies want a wet signature. And everyone's just kind of on, Slack, like, I don't have a printer, like I can't do it, like that integration with that company that can do and handle the wet signature process is awesome. That's like a big game changer for big corporations that deal like internationally, because I know a lot of international companies still rely on wet signatures. And then what was the other? Oh, the QR code, the pre-fill capability with the QR code. That's really cool, especially now. To be honest, I thought QR codes were kind of over, but this year's proven me wrong.
Right.
It's a big year for QR codes. So that's really cool about the pre-filled part, but you can still transfer that down into the QR experience. We do have one question that came in. Adam asked, I saw that Formstack is HIPAA compliant. However, I was curious if it's also HIPAA compliant. Essentially, it's the same thing, but for Canada.
That is an excellent question. I'll answer that in a couple different ways. Our highest compliance product happens to be our Salesforce Forms product that we call Native Cloud. And the reason we point that out is that's installed natively in a Salesforce org. So there's many customers around the world, like if there's local data governance regulations in Canada or Australia, where our Forms product basically inherits the kind of compliance standards of your Salesforce org. More generally, across the board, you're right. HIPAA compliance is a strength. We do have HIPAA compliant plans for all of our products. I am not sure about that question, Adam, for PHIPA, FIPA, if I'm saying it right. If we have your email address from Amy, we'll be sure to follow up with you on that after the webinar. I'll get an answer from our compliance team.
Adam, if you want to send me a message to the panelists with your email address, I can just make sure we get that to you. We have another question. Courtney asked, I've used the community forum quite a bit, and I know there are how-tos for Formstack docs, but are there any other great resources for more complex logic and the syntax used?
Justin, what are your thoughts on that? Resources for deeper Formstack documents, use cases, or resources?
Yeah, we have tons of help articles that give you very defined use cases for if else loops, stuff like that, Courtney. So I'd be happy to send those to you if we can get your email as well. We'd love to send you a couple of resources. If there are specific databases or tech stacks you're working with, that would be great to know as well, so we can maybe provide a little more color as to how you would do it with that tech stack.
And maybe that's an opportunity too for MakerPad to make some tutorials on some of the if statements. I didn't realize when I was creating the document in the document editor that you could do if statements within there to like only show certain clauses or something if some box was checked off or something. That's another really awesome way that you could cut down on having to merge a contract with a bunch of other documents. And especially with, like you said, the different, like California, they have like their own privacy acts and stuff. So that's awesome. I have a bunch of questions that our MakerPad community submitted, and I'm like going through them. And at this point, I'm kind of like, can it do this? Can it do this? Yeah, basically, Formstack can do anything. One of the questions was, can you paywall a form within Formstack?
Oh, paywall, so have the form be protected. Formstack supports SSO for one thing. So many of our customers use Formstack in conjunction with, some other third-party portal and use our SSO capabilities. Also, our Salesforce product is always and often used in conjunction with Salesforce Communities, which is a portal system. Also, we also have a add-on to Formstack called Formstack Portals, which is a very specialized forms portal. Basically, it's a wrapper around like a series of forms. If you've got things like recurring data capture, where you want to kind of have all those forms available in one place. Maybe it's like an HR process where there's a variety of forms that one needs to fill out in a centralized location on a recurring basis.
Okay, the next question was, and maybe this is one that we need to get back to the community with, but can you automatically generate a PDF report that needs to pull data from multiple records? So maybe the example would be like an Airtable. You need to generate a document that has information from 2 rows of data instead of just one within one document, if that makes sense.
So yes, the short answer is yes. It's a little more complex to configure. We can also pull data from 2 different tables. Again, also kind of complex. If there's a specific use case someone would like to talk through, would love to meet with them. One of our SEs has configured this and shared a video with me that I watched prior to this call here. I just haven't configured it myself, but I've seen it in action.
I know you mentioned that you could do partially finished forms. Does that also enable someone to revisit that form and continue filling out where they left off? Or does that just show like kind of the back end data of like someone dropped off?
So the feature itself just keeps the backend data. There's a separate feature that we have that's saved for later that you would just essentially, it's a toggle, and that would then have a button for the user on the form to enter their email address, and then it would send them a unique encrypted link to their inbox to reference back later.
Awesome, love it. That is all the questions I had from our community. The other ones you've already touched on in terms of can you pull together multiple documents? Can you track analytics? Basically, I think we covered all those things. If anyone else has any more questions, feel free to still drop them. Zach, Justin, is there anything that you want to circle back and touch on that we didn't cover or that you want to highlight with our last few minutes here?
I do want to go back, I know Courtney mentioned she was in real estate. You were talking about if statements and all that stuff with documents. One thing about that real estate use case I mentioned earlier with workflow forms was that within the workflow, the person who was making the purchase of the property would choose what type of payment terms they liked, whether it's 50-50 or they do monthly payments over XYZ years. And what that would do is that radio button or drop-down menu in the form would then define which payment schedule table to show. So you can wrap an if statement around an entire table and even put if statements in tables to show or not show values based off of those conditions, whatever you want the trigger to be on that. So very robust for real estate use cases and building out contracts like that.
What would you say are your top industries that use Formstack? I know healthcare is one of them, but would you say it's real estate as well? Then what else?
Healthcare, education.
Okay.
So colleges, universities, K-12, all forms of data capture associated with running schools and managing relationships with students and other groups like alumni. Legal firms, like you said, real estate, financial services, broadly speaking, definitely a hot sector for us right now. And you could break that down into insurance and wealth management and other sectors.
Yeah, when I was exploring like different form tools and signature clients and stuff, it's actually kind of crazy how no form tool is the same. And a lot of them offer like signature capabilities, but they're not considered kind of like fail-proof in terms of like the legality of them. So that was one thing in this use case that we ran into was, yeah, you can, scribble a signature with your mouse, but they really want to have that certificate that Formstack offers at the end to just kind of solidify the legality of the signature, which was only a few forms I would say offer that, which was interesting to me. And then one thing I feel like in the no code space that doesn't get talked about enough is security of data. You can use a form across multiple different tools, but you are collecting probably more often than not personal information. And you need to make sure that where you're housing that is secure, especially if you're trying to, create a business that's international. So what I love about Formstack is obviously how all the different compliances you guys have, but the integration with Airtable is great because it's now SOC 2 compliant, which is great for using it as a database with people being in the no code space loving Airtable. So I think that's one thing to highlight too, is if you are collecting personal information, you should definitely think about the security of the platform. It's worth the money versus like GDPR coming after you. But yeah, so. All right, well, if no one else has any other questions, I think we can wrap this up. I know if anyone's interested in playing around with Formstack, I believe there's a 14-day free trial on the platform that you can sign up for and play around with. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with, Zach or Justin?
I feel like there should be, calls to action. We're social media type, so maybe I'll just make it easy. I'll post my Twitter handle in the chat there. I'll also quickly grab my LinkedIn handle. So yeah, feel free to reach out on social media if we can help with any next steps. Yeah. As well as, as Amy said, check out formstack.com if you want to try any or all of the products.
Yeah, and I have a few ideas of like some tutorials to make for the MakerPad community. So I'll probably be following up with you guys on how you actually do some of the things you mentioned. I love the stuff around the event tickets and stuff, and the wine vineyard, who doesn't love wine? So that's a great use case to showcase. But yeah, other than that, thanks everyone for attending, and please reach out to Zach or Justin if you have any follow-up questions.
Yeah, Amy, Justin will follow up with you on the data routing use case, because that's going to allow you to do that like kind of more intelligent document scenario for the customer.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you both for your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, excited to jump in and learn more.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.